depending on where you live, you may have heard the word radon gas or radon mitigation or something with the word radon in it. Maybe you've moved out of town and you've bought this new place and you're doing an addition, and someone says, well, you have to make sure to protect yourself or install methods to exhaust radon. You're like, well, what is radon? So let's dive into the code real fast, and I'll show you the definition of radon, and then I'll hop back and I'll kind of go over just the general methods of it, and then we'll kind of scroll through the code here real fast, and then I'll show you some pictures. It's very simple. It may look like it's hard to figure out, or that it might take a lot of extra effort, but radon mitigation is, at the end of the day, it's a 3-inch pipe up through your house. It's maybe putting in like some permeable rock below your slab if you're putting an addition in, or a basement or something like that, and some 6 mil plastic. I mean, maybe a fan, a little electrical. It's pretty straightforward, but it's good for you to know what the methods are, so that if you do have to install radon, that you kind of know the different routes that you can go and what you can take to get it done. So first, what is radon? So radon gas is a naturally occurring, chemically inert radioactive gas that is not detectable by human senses. As a gas, it can move readily through particles of soil and rock and can accumulate under slabs and foundations of homes, or can easily enter the living space through construction cracks and openings. Where I'm at, we have, or considered to have, a high amount of radon gas. I mean, obviously I can't smell it, I can't sense it, but as far as an inspector goes, or a new home builder when I was building new homes, or doing my own home projects, whenever I do anything that is an addition, I'm usually required to do some type of radon mitigation. And that's even included in a crawl space, even a vented crawl space. Maybe you've got vents to the outside. It's still required to at least provide piping and the 6 mil plastic as a way to try to allow any radon gas that comes up through the earth to find its way up and out through the roof without entering the house. So what are the kind of different methods? Well, there's kind of 2 main methods, right? There's kind of the prescriptive method, which is what the code book lays out, which anybody can do. Anybody can install via the prescriptive method. Then there's what they call the engineered method. So the engineered method is somebody who has a company who has taken a class, and they become engineered on how to design a radon system that fits whatever it is you're trying to do. I don't think it's rocket science, but at the same time, there's still those 2 different options, right? Engineered system or prescriptive method. If you have, say, a existing basement house, or an existing house with a basement in it, and you're finishing it, and your building department saying, hey, you need to provide radon mitigation, most likely you're going to use some type of engineered system, because you're going to end up core drilling through that concrete and putting in a big old pipe and then a big fan up in the attic to kind of suck air out from underneath the slab and make sure that any gas pockets are able to be exhausted. That would be kind of a situation where you don't really have a choice in most instances, at least from what I've seen. The prescriptive method is, or even the engineered method, can be used if there's no slab, right? Because now you get to work with that soil, and you can put down your vapor barrier, like your 6 mil plastic. You can put down what they call radon, what we call radon rock, which is just permeable rock, right? Like pea gravels, or like just, round circular rock that doesn't compact so tight that you can't suck air through it. And so the prescriptive method, so we've kind of gone through the engineered method, right? The engineer just kind of designs it. Usually it's a 3-inch pipe, and then what they do is they'll kind of wrap like the black perf pipe. It's got a bunch of holes in it. They'll wrap it in underneath in the dirt, and then you put your vapor barrier down, and you'll pour your slab over it, and then they'll put a fan up in the attic, and that's kind of a general engineered system. They usually can put it in any soils. Out of all the houses I've ever built, I've never seen an engineered system where they've worried about what type of soil was there. It's whatever soil you have. From what I've seen, they just put the pipe in there, You backfill, you kind of cover it up, put your plastic down, pour your slab, and you're good to go. They would come back after everything's framed when you're doing rough-in, and they would finish running the pipe up through the roof, put a fan on it. Your electrician would run wire to it so that it runs constantly, and that would be considered an engineered system. Prescriptive method would be someone who's not engineered or licensed to do it, which would be probably your standard homeowner, myself. If the house that I built for ourselves a few years ago, it's on a crawl space, a vented crawl space, and so I just ran a 3-inch ABS pipe from the crawl space up through the roof. No fan was needed, and we put our 6mm vapor barrier down in the crawl space, sealed it all up around the foundation, and then ran our pipe up under that plastic, sealed the plastic around the pipe, and so that, in essence, any gas that would come up through the ground would hit that plastic, and the only way it could get out was to find that pipe and go up and out through the roof. So that would be like a prescriptive method in a crawl space. So what about in a basement? So in a basement, it's an actual living space. The concrete floor is living space. And so that's where they kick in like the permeable rock. The prescriptive method, again, back to what, any of us could do without some type of certificate or approval, would be 4 inches of permeable rock. And you would have a 3-inch pipe that would run through that rock. And you'd say, well, how much? Well, at least where I'm at, we only require, if it's one big open space and it's not broken up by a bunch of like interior footings, it's just like a 5 or 10 foot stick of perf pipe that's run, and perf pipe I mean by pipe that has a bunch of holes in it. It's breathable, can suck air through it, but yet it doesn't cave in by the rocks. And so it's set inside of that 4 inches of permeable rock, right? This 3-inch pipe. So it's kind of buried over that rock. And then the plastic's put down, and then the slab is poured. And you've pretty much met the requirement at that point for a prescriptive method radon system, right? That's all the below slab work. So it's a little bit of 3-inch pipe. It's when you backfill your foundation, just make sure you backfill and leave yourself 4 inches, and then you have to bring in some rock, some permeable pea gravel type rock. You can usually shoot it in or lay it in, rake it out, however you do it. Put your plastic down, pour your slab. That's got you up and out through the slab, and then at that particular point, you just run your pipe up and out through the roof. And then you're kind of done. Usually they ask you to put, in your attic, they ask you to put power, so in case you ever want to add a fan to it, or if anyone ever does a test and finds that the radon is higher levels than normal, you can add the fan, and it can help suck any pockets of radon from under the slab up and out. That is, in a nutshell, that's radon right there. That is what you would do. That's what we inspect. As an inspector, I will go verify the radon rock. I will verify the pipe that's in the ground, and the vapor barrier, the 6mm plastic that goes over the top before the slab gets poured. Then we kind of just make sure the pipe's labeled as it goes up and out through the roof, and that's the extent of it. So I'll jump into the code a little bit, and then I'll show you some pictures. It's pretty simple. Just making sure that you're able to trap that gas if you have it, and find a way for it to get out up through the roof. If you have just little addition, at least where we're at, we require people to still put that in. So you may only put in like a 300 or 400 square foot addition, maybe you're in a bedroom or something. Make sure, if you live in a high radon gas area, and if your building department's asking for it, that you just know that you're going to end up having to run a 3-inch pipe up through the roof. And so, you might frame one wall, a little closet wall with 2x6 instead of 2x4, just so you have room to run that pipe up and out or something like that. So you can hide it in the wall. But let's look at the code book a little bit here. So I showed you what the meaning of radon was. And so here is the soil gas retarder. So here it's the minimum 6mm or 3mm cross-laminated polyurethane or equivalent flexible sheeting material shall be placed on top of the gas permeable layer. So here we go up here. So we got subfloor preparation, right? And most people are going to use this one right here, which is what I explained, is a uniform layer of clean aggregate, not less than 4 inches thick. So that's your 4 inches of permeable rock. It says the aggregate shall consist of material that will pass through a 2-inch sieve and be retained by a 1/4 inch sieve. So I mean, it's just saying that your rock is permeable, meaning it doesn't have loose sands and soils in it that would compact it, but it's between 2 inches and a 1/4 inch rock. So that's where your pea gravel would be fine, or even kind of bigger river rock would be fine. Any of those types of materials, as long as you can get a nice flat base, it's nice and compact so your slab doesn't crack, but still provides room for suction through that pipe. And then this is where it jumps down to the plastic over the top of it. We can scroll down in here. I want to find the pipe size, the vent pipe. Plumbing tee or other approved connection shall be inserted horizontally beneath the sheathing and connected to a 3 or 4 inch diameter fitting with a vertical vent pipe installed through the sheathing. Okay, so again, whether or not it's a crawl space or a basement, you're going to be putting that that vapor barrier down, that 6 mil plastic, and the pipe goes underneath that. Sits in the rock or just on the ground if it's in a crawl space. You're not going to put that radon rock in the crawl space. Especially if it's unconditioned. If you already have vents outside, it's like, well, if any gas comes out, it should be able to just vent out through your vents in your crawl space. Now, conditioned crawl space might be a little different. Your building department might require you to put in radon rock and put the plastic down. Where we're at, everything is vented crawl spaces, and so we don't require the radon rock in those particular places. You just put your pipe down, put a 90, maybe run a 5-foot stick of pipe with some perf, with some holes in it, put your vapor barrier over the top, and you are good to go. Vent pipe, minimum 3-inch diameter. They're saying you can use ABS, PVC, or equivalent gas-tight pipe shall be embedded. This is vertically into the subslab aggregate or other permeable material before the slab is cast. A lot of times guys will just use a T-fitting. Okay, so it says right here like a T-fitting or equivalent method. So you can just do a 90, but sometimes they'll buy a 10-foot stick of perf pipe and they'll do a T and they'll go 5 feet each way. I've seen that quite a bit. Here's crawl space floors. So openings around all penetrations through floors above crawl spaces shall be caulked or otherwise filled to prevent air leakage. So that's kind of above and beyond just the plastic. They're saying they don't want any holes or gaps where air from the crawl space is going to find its way up and into the living space. That's pretty standard though. Most people don't want air coming from their crawl space anyways. So this right here, I was not able to turn this, but I will make sure down below that I've kind of turned this particular chart here. But this is what tells you it's just high potential for radon, moderate, and low. The chart's not very readable, but what is at least is this high potential area. And you can kind of see right here the areas that have high potential for radon. So if you live in any of these areas or you're even close to that, then most likely your building department's going to want you to mitigate radon to some extent. And so I would just make sure you're aware of it. Ask them if they have any specific requirements, maybe above and beyond what I'm telling you. And that way you don't get your project done or get to the point where you're ready for inspection, you're ready to pour concrete, and they tell you, you need to cut out 4 inches of your existing soil so that you have room for radon rock, right? That would be no fun. So the goal is to make sure that you have an idea like, do I need to do this up front, so you can plan for it. So you can see up in here all these particular areas. And then here moderate is kind of this other box type, and it looks like it's a lot of this area right here. So maybe a lot of the Midwestern to the northern states are areas that are high in radon. So just keep that in mind. Here are the counties, and I'll make sure this is below as well. But it talks, so Alabama, Connecticut, Georgia, it kind of goes through all these high level radon rock areas by county. So you can see there's quite a few of them. depending on where you live. Here are some sub-slab. These are just some different drawings. I don't know that I'd get too wound up in the drawings per se. Here would be like a slab. It's kind of showing the gravel with the polyurethane sheeting. Here would be gravel again with the drain tile loop. So here they're looping it with a pipe. They got their polyurethane sheeting and then they're sucking it out through the roof. And then here is like a crawl space. Move myself here. Perforated drain tile. So here they're going to a little more extent. They're putting in perforated drain tiles, put in their polyurethane sheet, and then they're sucking it up and out. Where I'm at, this would be a vented crawl space, so there'd actually be vents right here. And we would just put the polyurethane plastic down on the ground, seal it around the walls, and then we'd have a pipe that allows gas to get up and out through the roof. So at least where we're at, it's pretty laid back. If you're in an area that you do conditioned crawl spaces, somebody might be a little bit more strict on the requirements. So just be aware of that. So let's look at some pictures, so you kind of know how we do it where we're at, just kind of have an idea, and then hopefully that'll keep you moving in the right direction. Like I said, just make sure that you check with your building department. They may have specifics that aren't required where I'm at, but maybe required where you're at. Or if you move from another area and you just don't know about radon and you want to know a little bit more about it and what requirements that your local area has, make sure to check with them. But let's dive into some pictures a little bit. So this would be a new house, and you can see this, they're doing prescriptive method here. This is not engineered, so there's no stamp on it or anything like that, and it's just a simple 3-inch PVC pipe. They've labeled it right here. They wrote radon, and they got a T here, so they've got perf pipe, which is these little holes that are drilled in it, and it looks like they got about 10 feet of it. They've gone in then after that and they put in what we would call radon rock or permeable rock, 4 inches worth of it. And so you can see that if it was compacted, it would still have holes in it, places where air or gas can move through it and then get sucked up through the pipe. Once this is in, as an inspector, I will have looked at the pipe. I will verify that this is 4 inches thick, the radon rock, the pea gravel, and then I would verify that the vapor barrier is down. So here they've got their vapor barrier down, and they are getting ready to pour their slab. So this is a different house than this one right here, but same concept. They're going to be doing the same exact thing. They will kind of rake out the soils here. They'll come in and put 4 inches of pea gravel down, and then they will pour their slab after their vapor barrier has been placed like this. Once they're done and they pour their slab, the hard part's done. Now it's just taking it out up through the roof, which would be something like this, and they will label it so that you don't accidentally tie into it. If you sell your house down the road, the last thing you want to see is a new homeowner, they're like, hey, I want to add a sink here. And they're like, oh, there's a pipe. And they go hook into it and they start draining in below their slab or into their crawl space. So definitely label your pipes so that people know, yes, this is a radon pipe. This is not a drainage pipe. And then if you were to install a fan, a lot of times this is what it looks like. So it just goes up into the attic. There's a fan up here. It would run continuously. You would never even know it was there. It gets hooked up to power. Usually there's a switch with a light up there, and normally they like to see this close to your attic access. Not always, but that way it's accessible if you need to work on it. But usually it just sits there and runs and runs and runs for years and years and years. And even if it was to shut off, everything would be set up for a natural ventilation up through that pipe. You can also see where they've labeled it right here as well, just to make sure if anyone ever opened the wall, they would know what it is. So hopefully I didn't confuse you there too much. In a nutshell, if you live in a high radon area, you'll most likely have to mitigate for it. If you have a crawl space, whether or not it's vented or unvented crawl space, you would still have to do some type of mitigation for radon. It can be very simple, like just a pipe underneath some plastic, or it could be a little bit more intensive, depending on what your building department requires. If it is a basement, you're going to have to do that, and you're pouring a slab, you're going to have to do probably the 4 inches of radon rock, the plastic 6 mil, and then the pipe that goes through the gravel and up out through the roof. You can also go to that engineered system where you pay someone to do it for you. But if you're a homeowner and you're trying to do it yourself, just stick with the 4 inches of radon rock and the plastic. Make sure it gets inspected before you pour, and you should be just fine. So I hope that this would kind of help you out a little bit as far as radon's concerned. I know there are people out there, people that have moved into our area, and they're like, what is radon? I have no idea. It makes no sense to me. And so I try to explain it to them a little bit, and it's usually not that big of a deal. But there are instances where people will just, move forward and they didn't know, and it gets covered, and it's like, well, what do we do now? And, how strict is your building department going to be? Are they going to make you core drill now through your slab and put in some type of engineered active system or something like that? So anyways, just some heads up, and hopefully it keeps you moving down your project and helps you get it done. And I hope you're just having a blast working on it. So we'll move on to the next one, and we'll keep you moving.